Okay, folks, so we're downloading webquery.xlsm, and there's some data on that. So I'm just deleting. I deleted sheet 2, and I deleted all the data on sheet 1. What this is, so today we're working with built-in functions. We'll spend most of our time working on string functions, but the chapter that we're covering today also covers like mathematical functions. Just, things that you can pass arguments to in VBA, and it will do some calculations or some kind of procedure on it and send you some information back. This file that we're working on today, I decided to bring in because it will kind of give us something that we lost. So you remember we talked about the Web Query Wizard, how the Web Query Wizard has recently changed, and what it does now is more complex. This code that we have here will duplicate what the old simple Web Query Wizard used to do. And it does it so it will allow you to just drop in a URL, and it will give you back all the data from that page, even if it's not in a table. Just whatever data is on that page, it will just give it back to you and dump it onto a worksheet. So I thought this was a pretty good skill to have, and kind of sad that we lost it from Excel, and so we're using it kind of as the backdrop for the other stuff that we're learning today in class. So I'm just going to create a new, let's just kind of quickly scan through this code, and I'll talk you through it at a high level. The purpose is not to understand this code today. We're going to use this procedure, this import page procedure. Let me just talk you through it really quickly. We are used to working with objects in VBA, right? From the very first day of class, we talked about objects. Objects are what?
Things.
Object's a thing. Has two characteristics that we're really interested about. They are?
Properties
and methods. Okay. So when we see this create object, so far all these objects that we've worked with have been objects that are already built into Excel. It's a worksheet. It's already there. Or there's a collection of worksheets, and we're going to add a new worksheet to it. So we can create objects, but in a sense, the objects themselves are there, and they're part of Excel. This object that we're making with this create object is just part of the Windows operating system. It's called the Microsoft XML2 Server XML HTTP object. It's just an object that knows how to talk to a web server. That's what it is. It's not a browser. It doesn't know how to render a web page. It doesn't know how to make it look graphically. It just says, you want to request a page? Great. I'll request a page, and I'll bring you back the page from the web server. That's all it does. That is a little more. And so with the object that we're creating, we are going to call the open method. And that's going to get the URL that gets passed in here. False means it's not a background query, so wait till it comes. The send, open just kind of gets it ready to send, actually sends the request. And then response text is what comes back from the send. In the meantime, I'm going to open a file for output. I'm going to write this file down to the disk. So all this first block does is it requests a file, by URL, it requests a file from a web server, and it writes it to a disk at a file called webquery.html at the same location where this workbook is saved. By the way, you'll want to make sure that this workbook is saved somewhere where, if you say workbook.path, that it starts with, this workbook.path. It starts with a letter. So some letter, colon. So if it starts with a letter and a colon, you're great. If it starts with HTTP, then you're saving it to what's it called? What's Microsoft's Google Drive? Called OneDrive? Yeah, so if you're saving this to OneDrive, it's going to have an HTTP something there, and VBA is not going to know how to deal with that. So make sure you save this file today. It needs to be saved somewhere locally, like to your My Documents on this computer or somewhere. If you are on like Parallels and it starts with a UNC path, something that looks like 2 slashes to start with, you've got to get it saved and open from somewhere that starts with a drive letter and a backslash. It's just because it's going to assume that we're there to be able to write a file to a disk. By the way, we're passing in a URL that we're going to get for the page, and then optionally we're passing in a range object. And here we're saying if the range object isn't passed in, if there's nothing that's passed in for the range object, then we're going to bind that variable onto the active cell. So you don't have to tell me where you want to put this. If you don't tell me where you want to put the data, it's going to dump it onto the Excel workbook wherever the active cell is. Be careful, because you've got data on your workbook, it'll write right over the top of the data. It's just going to drop this data onto the active cell. This then is actually creating the query table. This is what, when you recorded the old web query wizard, this is what it recorded when you created a web query. something looks just like this. Well, something like this. With the query tables on the active sheet, modify a little bit here, you're going to add a connection that would tell a URL that you're doing here and name it all these different defaults here. And then, in this case, I say, you know what, we don't really need that query object hanging around, and so from the range, go to the range's parent. I don't think we talked about a parent. You know how when you say I've got an object, dot, another object, dot, another object? This object's parent is just one back. And so what is the parent of a range? Any idea? Yeah. Active cell dot, go back, CEL dot parent dot name. It's a worksheet, sheet 1. So you can say, oh, you say sheet 1 dot some cell. You can say some cell dot parent. That gets you back up a level. So this is just saying go back up to the worksheet that's associated with the range that we're bound onto. Find the query tables on that and delete it. It's assuming that there's no other query tables. No other query. It's going to create one and then delete it. And then it just deletes the file that got saved up above. Yeah, kill. The statement is kill. It's very violent. It's not like delete file or remove file or something. It's kill. Kill this file, and it just deletes that off the hard disk. Okay. And so again, the purpose of today isn't really to understand all that code. The purpose today is just to realize, oh, that's what code used to look like when it got generated with the Web Query Wizard. Some modifications there, and we're going to use this to pull in some data. In fact, let's go ahead and go to our normal page where we pull that data. Finance.yahoo.com. Slash quote slash, then put in a stock ticker. Of course, you can find the quote lookup and look it up that way. But we're going to need that URL to work with for today's exam. You'll probably just type it, finance.yahoo.com. https://finance.yahoo.com/quote/. So let's make a sub procedure. Sub. Get quote. I don't know. I'll call it web query. All right. So let me start off with getting used to some of these different string or different functions that are built in. So let me get a URL. Give URL as a string. Now we're going to ask the user to supply a URL. It probably should be, the code that we're going to write is going to assume that we're at finance.yahoo.com, but we'll let him type in the whole URL. So here's how we're going to do it. URL equals. Now I'm going to call the input box function. Input box is kind of a nice function. It just puts up a dialog box and asks the user to type something in. Don't get too used to it, because I'm going to teach you later in this class how to make your own input boxes that are totally customizable. And you can actually put code into the input box so that while the input box is running, it can check to make sure that what the user's typed in is valid and it's not blank and all kinds of great things. But this is quick and dirty. So input box, open parentheses, and then we put some prompt. Enter a URL, preferably from finance.yahoo.com. That's just a message we're going to show to the user. The next thing, then, is what you want to be in the title of this input box that we're displaying in a web query. Ooh. Now, the next thing we can have here is a default. What do we want this to start with? I mean, if the user doesn't type something in, what's there to start with? I'm going to go ahead and put in that whole stock, or that whole, I'm going to put in the whole URL. So it's going to start, and the nice thing about this is that while I'm debugging today, I won't have to type it in. It'll just be there. And so the input box function displays up this kind of dialog box. The user can type something in, they press OK, and we're off and running. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put a breakpoint in my code, stop. So before I get to the end sub, I'm going to stop. And that'll bring us into break mode so we can kind of take a look and peek around at the various values of our variable. Okay, so now if I run this, here's that input box. It's really nice. Very URL. And there's already one there for me. I could change it. Just change that to Google. And say OK. So now, if I go to my immediate window and look at URL, that's what I've got. Whatever the user typed in. Pretty slick. That's input box. There's one other thing to know about input box. The question is, what happens if we hit cancel? I'm going to just drag my current statement indicator back to the URL, run it again, and I'll hit cancel. It doesn't end the sub procedure. It doesn't cancel my code. It just returns something different. What does it return? It returns a zero-length string. Even though that default was in there, and if the user typed anything in, they hit cancel, it just sends back a zero-length. It ignores what's there and sends back a zero-length string. So now that lets us be able to tell, that's a way we can tell that the user hit cancel. Well, actually it returns exactly the same thing whether they hit cancel or whether they delete everything off of there and press OK. Either way, it comes back as a zero-length string, which for our purposes today will be just fine, because zero-length string, we don't know what to do with it. We're just going to have to cancel. So we'll just do an if statement right here. If, I'll do a one-line if statement. If URL, let's do it this way. If the length of URL, so length is a string function, it just returns how long a string is. You want to know how long it is? We should be able to just come right here. We can do it in the immediate window, question mark, the length of this whole string. Give myself an end if in here. That's 36 characters. But I want to know if the length is equal to 0, then I want to do something. What do I want to do? Exit sub. So exit sub statement just says, get me out of here. I don't care what else is coming up next. I'm done. And so that will really turn into a cancel. The user went down this road, hit play, cancel, and then we're done. We never hit this breakpoint. We never hit the stop. Just yanked us clean out of the subprocedure. Oh, any questions on input box?
What's stop for again?
Stop is just a breakpoint written in code.
Okay.
So it's when the interpreter gets to stop, it goes, oh, my programmers, let's look and see what's going on here. Pause the program. Open up the editor. Show the editor. All right. So now let's go ahead and use that to open the data. So if we get past this, the user has at least given us a URL. So now I'm going to call import page. I'm going to pass it URL, and I'm going to pass it a range. Why don't we do this as sheet1 dot range a1. Now, how can I just say sheet 1? Why does that work? It does, by the way. New project explorer. The reason I can just say sheet 1, well, this one's a little confusing because they're both called sheet 1. So let me change where it says sheet 1 out here on my sheet to web query. And so now when I come back here and look in so now, web query, the name that shows on the tab is just what shows in the parentheses. The name of the object itself is sheet 1. And so I can use, I don't have to put it in quotes, I don't have to use it, it's sheet 1. I can say sheets and then in parentheses and quotes web query, but this is the name of the object. I can refer to that directly. So when I say sheet 1 here, it is the code name. It's the name of the object in code. It's the object's direct name. Okay, so that should import the page. Huh, that was easy. I'm going to run this, and it should bring a pop load of data in to my sheet. Okay, it's running still, taking a minute to run. It's got to send that information to Yahoo. Yahoo's got to get around to answering it, sending it back. Excel has to write that down to the disk, and then read it from the disk, and here it is. It's not pretty. Well, data was never really meant to be pretty. It was meant to be data. But the nice thing here is that it's brought back both of those tables. I didn't have to say get this table and then get that table. It brought them both back here onto the same page. And even better, if I look up here around 44, I'm going to see that I've got the price, the current price from that page. 56.81. What do I have? 56.81. There it is. Now, unfortunately, it's not in a cell by itself. But that's what we're doing today anyway. We're learning how to work with strings and kind of parse strings and such. So we're going to be able to deal with it. Now, for those of you that ran this, I guess we can go back to the code. That's this code here now. Now that we have that procedure down here, that code's pretty simple. Get a URL, ask for the URL, and tell it where to go, where the results to go. But did any of you have the price, $56.81, in a different cell than A44? Anybody? Did anybody get it in A44? Most of you. Anyone in a different cell? Aha! What cell?
45.
In 45. Why is yours in 45? Why is his in 40? When everyone else is in 44, why is his in 45? And the answer is there's some different set of advertisements up here. There's not a whole lot happening before here. Some different set of advertisements that he got that parsed differently. And so it just got pushed down a little. That's the bad news here. And the nice thing about telling you which table to bring in is that you know it's going to be cell A4 when it comes in. Here we don't know. And so we are going to have to figure out where the price is. Any thoughts?
You use add to watch list since that will come before it, no matter what.
So this is pretty. I think that's a pretty good idea. Is that let's ask Mr. 45 over there. What do you have in 44? Add to watch list. Okay, so that's pretty good. So this might be a pretty good way to do it. We'll just bring all the data back. We're going to find add to watch list, and then we're just going to go offset by one cell. So let's take a look at how we do that. So I'm going to declare a new variable. This is going to be a range object. I'm going to call it found cell as a range. Found cell, it's an arbitrary name. I could have called it Fred or Nephi. I could have called it anything. But it does need to be a range type, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, after the page is here, I want to check to see if I can find that cell with, what did it say for that? Add to watch list. I want to find this cell. All right, well, here's how I find this cell. The name of my sheet is sheet 1. Lost in space. Sheet 1 dot. Let's just do cells. So cells says I'm going to look. If I don't tell it which cell I'm looking at, the row and column, it'll assume I'm talking about all the cells. Dot find. There's a find method. First thing it's looking for is, what am I finding? I am finding add to watch list. This next argument after is like, do you want to start looking after a particular cell? No, not really. I'll just default that. That's fine. Look in. Am I looking at the formulas? Am I looking at the value of the cell? I'm going to default that one as well. Look at. This one I want to be careful about. I want to look at XL whole. Look at everything. I'm not looking for this in a part of the cell. I can't imagine this phrase will show up in any other cell above this, but I know that it's going to be the whole cell for the one I'm looking for. So I'll do XL whole. Search direction, I don't really care because it should be the only one. Well, search order, search direction, we got all these things. Match by case. Oh, match case? Sure, true. Match by, I don't even know what that means. Search as formatted, no, I don't care about that. I don't care about the rest of this. So I'll just end off my parentheses. Okay. Ooh. That should keep me in error if I try to move the line. All right, let's talk about what find is doing. Find is going to try to find that cell. How is it going to tell me that it found it? How is it going to say, hey, I found it? Good news! I found the cell you're looking for. I had to look across 500,000 cells, but I found it. How's it going to tell me?
Does it return the address or an index?
Oh, that's good. Okay, it's going to return something. And it's going to return an address, but not the cell's address. It's going to return the memory address for where that cell is located. It's going to send back a reference to the object that it found. And so how do we bind an object variable onto an object reference? Set found cell equal to this function. If this is successful finding it, it's going to pass back a reference to that cell. If it's not successful finding it, it's going to pass back nothing. In VBA, nothing is something. Type name of nothing. So it's going to look at that and goes, I know what that is. Nothing is of type nothing. Nothing's a little confusing. Nothing is what an object variable is bound to if it's not really bound to an object. When I create a new object variable, if it's not bound onto an object, it is bound onto nothing. It's just an object.
Is that null?
I don't think
it's like a null.
It's not null.
Okay.
No. Null is different. It is an object variable that's not a real object. Maybe it is a real object. It's no other object. It's not bound on anything. It's like an object that has nothing but an address. There's no methods, there's no properties, no methods. It's just a placeholder object. Yeah.
So, is that the same as like a value if you put two quotation marks with nothing?
Is it the same as a zero-length string? No. The only thing it is it's a special object. The objects that aren't defined are pointing to nothing. And it's for something just like this. I got to send back something. Well, what reference do I send back? I send a reference back to the object nothing. It lets us do something really interesting. Because we can now say if found cell is nothing, then we'll do something else with this. Boy, because nothing is so abstract, let me do something different here. I think we're going to come back to this construct, which is the common construct. So let's do this. We can ask for the type name of different variables. Type name of found cell. Found cell is either going to be nothing or it's going to be a range. The only two options I have here. If I say, cells.find add to watch list, it is not going to pass me back a reference to a workbook. It's not going to pass me back a reference to a chart. It's going to either pass me back a reference to the cell that it found it or to this mysterious nothing object. I can ask if the type name is range, then I'll know, it passed me back a reference to a range. So right here, if this is the case, then I know that we found the cell. Yippee, we found the cell. We're going to make the code a little bit more complex as we go, but for right now this will be fun. What do we want to do if we found the cell? Let's get the price. The price is the cell right below it. So let me declare a variable here. Let me get price as a string. And I'll just say price equals, now here's the trick. Found cell, at this point, if I'm in this subprocedure, if I'm in this if block, found cell has been bound on to the cell that has add to watch list. That's not the one I want, but it's a reference to that cell. So price equals found cell dot what? Offset. Yes! I want to offset one row, 0 columns. I don't have to put the 0 columns, but I want to. It's optional. So I'm going to say one row, and I want the value of that cell. Oh. This should be pretty good. I want the value. The screen's a little bit dirty there, so let me clear that off so you can see that that really says value. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to drag this back up to where I'm saying I don't have to do the import again. My data's already here. So I'm just dragging from my stop back up here. If you don't have your yellow line there, just run it again. That's fine. But now I should be able to find this cell. I'll go one step at a time. F8. Yeah, it found that cell. I should be able to look for the address of found cell right now. That should be A43. Yeah. And so I'll be able to bind this line on. F8 will execute that line. And I should be able to... Has that changed the address of my found cell? No, found cell is still that address. But now I should have a value in price. And so there's price with my $56.81. It's up $1.31, which is 2.36%. I don't know if that is up since. Someone from finance could probably tell me what that up really means. Prior close.
Since the price was
Today for the prior close.
Yeah.
Okay, so very nice. Okay, let's see what happens. What happens now if it doesn't find it? Oh man, what are we going to do? How can we not find it? Here's what we do to not find it. I'm going to come back to my URL. I'm putting the URL in here. So I'm going to hit play here. It's going to ask for URL. Instead of putting in love, I'm going to put in me. What am I worth? I'm assuming that's not really a stock ticker. I'm pretty sure that one's not a stock ticker. I'll say OK. Now, it's still, does my program know it's not a stock ticker? No idea. And so it's going to send that off to finance.yahoo.com. Finance.yahoo.com is going to take that URL, and it's going to look at it, and it's going to send something back to me. Now, price. It would have been nice if we could have actually seen it go. You'll notice that price hasn't changed, and that's because we did not get in here to price. Let's take a look at the data that came back. So here's my A43, all markets. Here's the page it sent back. Some stuff at the home, skip to navigation, U.S. markets closed. Here's some stocks that are similar to you, but they're not you. Actually, we don't know of any that are similar to that. There's no results for that. So did this web server send me back a page?
Yeah.
It did. It was a page that said, we don't know what you're talking about. But incidentally, this is not one that you can add to the watch list because we didn't find it. And so we don't find this on the page. That's okay. So now we can tell, did it find the stock ticker? So we're now right here, if we're able to bind this on, we know now we either found the cell or we didn't find the price. So we'll put an else in here. And we did not get a good price. All right. And so this happens because we're able to look at the found cell and ask, what kind of cell is this? Now, oh look, I'm hovering over this, and right now found cell is nothing. See, found cell equals nothing. That's what cells.find passes back when it didn't find it. And this is actually a more efficient way to do this comparison. It's opposite. I'm not going to have my if statement be if it found it, it's going to be if it didn't find it. So if found cell, I'm just going to reverse to the process here. If found cell is nothing. And then I'm going to change the order. I'm just going to reverse. So now in the top half of the block, we didn't get a good price. Otherwise, down here, we did get a good price. This is the normal way that we check to see, did we actually find the cell? We just ask if it is nothing. If it is, we do what we want to do if it is. If we didn't find it, otherwise we do what we did if we did. What do we want to do if we didn't find it? Somebody goofed. Could have been the web server. Web server, you ever go to a web page and it spins for a while and comes back and says, sorry, we couldn't find what you're looking for. And then you just say refresh and then it comes back? That happens. We want to give you a chance to recover from that. So let's do this. Let's bring this same block that we have up here where we're asking for the URL. I'm going to copy that down into my if statement. So here, if the found cell is nothing, I want to give the user a chance to specify a different URL. In fact, I'll do the same thing. Enter, maybe I'll say there was a problem. Try again. There was a problem. Enter a URL from finessio.com. We'll still say web query, but now instead of me specifying out this whole default URL, what should I put here? What makes a tremendous amount of sense to put right here for the default value for that input box? I heard it. What is it? Yeah. Let me just put in what you typed in last time. I still got URL. It's sitting in a variable called URL. And so I'm going to pass that back to you so you can see what crazy thing you did and change it. You don't have to type it again. You don't have to go back to wherever I started you before. That's what I was working on. Let me see. And we'll keep the same second block here again. We'll repeat this down here. So again, if they hit cancel, we still want to be able to let us out of the function. Now here's the trick. What we want to happen is that if the user puts in a different URL and presses OK, or just presses OK on the same one that's there, what do we want to have happen? We want to go right back where we started. We want to start this process again. So, any ideas? How are we going to do it? What miraculous structure of programming that we've learned are we going to do this with? A loop. So we're going to put ourselves into a loop, and we're going to let ourselves out of the loop if we found the cell. Otherwise, we're going to stay in the loop. So where should we go to start the loop? How about right before we do the import page? So, put a do events in here. Good thinking. Good thinking. In fact, I may put it right here. Do events. Now, I like my do events at the end of the loop. I'll come to the end of the loop down here. Just before my stop, I'll put loop. Make sure we can see that all because it's a little confusing if I'm scrolling all around. Let me take everything that's inside this loop and tab it in a good amount so I can make sure I see that as part of the loop. And I'll put a do events. Right here's part of the loop. Do events. Remember, do events just says, hey, computer, stop for just a second and check to see if I'm trying to interrupt you. It's actually kind of easy to put yourself into an endless loop with this kind of loop. There's no until clause. There's no where clause here. I'm just going to say we found the cell. Get us out of here. So what am I going to say here? Exit do. Where did I go? Shift. I'm going to hit shift down to end now. Okay. So now we're expecting to loop here. And we're going to loop unless we get to this line right here, which is the line that lets us out. So if we come here, we didn't find the cell. We ask for the URL again. It gives us a chance to get out of the step procedure altogether if they cancel. Otherwise, we skip to the end if, do events, the loop takes us back up to the do, and we try again now with the updated URL. Not so bad. Keep doing that until the user either presses cancel or they actually got a page that has the price.
So when you just do the statement if the length equals 0, then x is sub, how does that go back in the loop to x is sub?
Aha! So the question is, this says x is sub. How's that keeping us in the loop? And it doesn't. Let's take a look at what's happening here. So here, this says, let's go back to this. So here we say we're looking for a cell. Set this range variable onto the results of the find method. We're trying to find a cell called add watch list. If it finds it, then we'll come down this way. If it doesn't find it, it sends back a reference to nothing. It binds found cell onto nothing, which makes this condition true. So if it doesn't find it, we drop into this part of the code. So now we tell them we're trying to get a new value for URL. We put up an input box. We tell them there's a problem. Enter a URL. And here's the URL you gave us last time. It was junk. But that's just for your reference. If they press cancel at this point, then input box is going to return what? You know?
Zero.
A
Zero length.
a zero length string, an empty string. So now, after we've gotten that URL, we're now saying, hey, let's just check. If the length of the URL is 0, if it's sent back a zero length string, the user pressed cancel. In that case, get us out of here altogether. But if they gave us a URL, then the length is going to be 36 or 22 or something. It will be some long string. In which case, this will be false. This will be false. We will not exit the subprocedure. We'll hit the else, which drops us to the end if. We do events. Hey, continue to do. Okay. We hit the loop. We go back up to the top, and we start again. So the exit sub is only happening if they clicked cancel. This is a way for us to get out. Maybe Yahoo's finance site is down, and no matter what I put in, it's not going to bring back. I'm going to give up at some point. I want to do that. Okay. Hey, let's try it again. I'm going to come back up here to the very top and run again. I'm going to put me in. We'll say OK. It's running. It's running. It's waiting for the data to come back. And there was a problem. Try again. GovAllen's no good. Great. Let's try again. Gary Allen. He's dead. He won't mind. Okay. It's trying to find the current price for Gary Allen. There's a problem. No Gary Allen. If I hit cancel, what's going to happen? I wish I could get myself into a break. I'm going to put a breakpoint here. I can't put a breakpoint. All right. But yeah, I'll go ahead and cancel now, and this should hit this end sub, and that should exit me right out. No, I'm not going to hit the breakpoints or anything, but I should cancel, and I'm out. No longer running. Doesn't say I'm running up here. So we're feeling pretty good. So I've got a couple of different ways to exit this thing. But what does it mean if I actually get past this loop? If I get right here, what does it mean? If I ever get to this line, if I ever get out of this loop, what does it mean? Out of this loop, but still inside the subprocedure. What it means is that we found add to watch list. At this point, we're not quite sure we actually got the price. But we know that we found add to watch list, and we have captured whatever was in the cell right below. In fact, maybe I'll do this. I'm going to bring this part here. I'm going to bring it outside the loop. So all we're doing now is we're doing an exit do if we found it. Once we get here, we know, hey, we found. Let's be clear about what we found. We found add to watch list. Now I can imagine a situation where the page format has changed at Yahoo, and it still says add to watch list, but they've got something else in the cell right below it. And so at this point, I'm not sure that I really have the price data yet, but I know that at least the pages come back at least in some measure what I expected. And at this point, I have pulled in whatever is in that cell right below it, but I want to do some checking to be sure that looks right. So, what are we going to do? Question in the back.
Yeah, just going back to our if statement above in the loop, will it catch if somebody puts in like something random, like not even related to a URL?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. I like it. My guess is no. Red Flintstone. So here's just an error. So before what we had, we're trying to open, here's where we're trying to open Fred Flintstone. And this object that knows how to talk to web servers is going, I know how to talk to every web server in the world. And that's not one of them. Can't do it. So yeah, good point. Let's not deal with that just yet. We may deal with that today. We may not. Let's see how it goes. So good point. We're assuming that we're actually going to be talking to a valid website. I like it. Okay. So now we're down here, and we've put it into price. I'd like to really make sure that is price. So we're going to do a little work here. I'm going to declare another variable here. I want to know something about the position. I'm going to be looking for something that I'm expecting to find inside a price. This price is formatted a certain way. I'm expecting to find something. So I'm going to keep track of where the position is. I'll make a position variable. I'll just abbreviate it to POS. That is short for position as an integer. So I declare a variable, an integer variable, to keep track of this position. Now, I want to look at price. I want to find out. Go ahead. I'm going to run right to here, so I've got it here in price. Run this. Pick up that stock ticker. should be coming. All right, I want to look and see. I should have this in price. Let me just check it again, make sure. Okay, so I've got this here in price. Anything I can do to make a quick check to feel pretty comfortable that I've got a price here? Any thoughts? Yeah.
If the right equals a parenthesis and a percentage sign. So right.
Okay, good. I like it. So if I just look at the rightmost two characters, I should expect to see, if this page came back in the format I'm expecting to see a percent sign and a parenthesis here. Okay, so let's do it. We're not using position for that. I was going to go a different direction, but I like this. So let's do this. I'm going to say if. Question? Yeah.
If you put in like GovAllen at the end of the URL, would it still come back as like 0%?
Oh, the question is, hey, what happens if you put in, something that's not a valid stock ticker? And the answer is, it comes back with a page that never says add to watch list. And so we never get out of this loop unless we exit the whole sub-procedure. And so we really don't get here unless we have found add to watch list. Okay, so now we're checking to see if those rightmost two characters, so let's just do that. If the right, I'll do it up here before we type it down below. I'm not going to print the price, I'm going to print the rightmost two characters. That's right, that was pretty good. So now I'm just going to give myself a little check here. I'm going to say, all right, if the rightmost two characters of price, that was a lot of work typing that, I'm going to type that again. Copy and paste that. If that is equal to a percentage sign and a closing parenthesis, then actually I want to do it if it's not equal to it. And so I'm going to change the equal sign to less than, greater than. So I say not equal to in VBA. So what I'm doing is I'm checking for a failure. So I only want to come into here if it's something that I haven't expected. If it's something I expect, I want to keep on moving. Not in the expected format. So what should we do? Well, why don't we just display a message box to the user? There's lots of things we could do, but at this point, let's just say, yeah, sorry, things went haywire, but we're done trying. So here's how we can do it. Message box. Something went haywire. I'll put a message box up to the user. I have second thoughts about where I want to place this. All right. Sorry to do this to you, folks. I'm going to move this block in the code. Let me tell you what I'm going to do, and then we can do it together. I would like to give the user one more chance at this point to try again. Trouble is, we're already outside of this loop. That means I want this block to happen still inside the loop. So I'm going to take where the price equals all the way to this end if, and I'm going to put it right up here before this exit. So right here where we found the cell, in the else clause. So we've got if found cell equals nothing. In the else clause, I'm going to put this above the exit div. And the reason is, based on what the user does here, I want a chance to stay in this loop. I'm not quite sure how we're going to get out yet, but I want a chance, one more chance, to try it again. Now at this point, the message box isn't sending us any values back, but we can configure it a little bit. We can configure it a little bit better. I can put on here an error. I can say VB critical. That'll give me a little red X, and might make some sound when it happens. And then I can put a title on the message box. Server error. All right. So now I'm going to drag my current position indicator back up to this message box. It'll actually be kind of tough. It'll be kind of tough for me to get to this part of my code if I'm just running through it, because I've got to have a page that sends back add to watch list, but doesn't have this percent I'm checking. This is something that's unusual, unexpected. I don't ever really expect to get it, but if I do, I want to be able to handle it gracefully. So rather than try to run the code to get here, which will be tough, I'm just going to drag my current position indicator to this line, and then we'll execute from here. What I'll do even before I execute it, let me put a breakpoint right here. STOP. Stop is, we talked about it already. It's the breakpoint written in code. All right, so I can run this now, and we can see what this does. Something went haywire, server error, nice little red X there. That's great. But beyond just putting that red X, I can put like 2 different buttons here. Watch this, and this is weird. So you'll notice when I hover over VB critical, that has a value of 16. Can you see that at all? Value of 16. But I can add onto here one of these other parameters. This is the only place that I know that VBA does this. Frankly, it's quirky. But instead of having 2 different parameters, one for the icon to put with it, and one for the set of buttons, it lets me add those together into one parameter. So I could put, this is a great one, VB abort, retry, ignore. This is telling it which buttons I want to display. So if I just hover over that one, that tells me it's 2. So this will be 2 plus 16, this will be 18. This will be exactly the same if I put an 18 here. And the variables are spaced out enough so that you can't accidentally run into something else that's the same as another combination. So now, let me go ahead and run that again. Something went haywire. I got abort, retry, ignore. These buttons at this point all do exactly the same thing. Have you seen my fellow programmers who do this to you? It doesn't matter which button you press on, you click on, it does the same thing. In fact, at this point, we don't even really have a way of telling which one the user clicked on. It's possible, but at this point we don't. Are you ready to see how to tell which one they clicked on? It's a little bit weird. The message box statement actually sends a value back to where it was called from. If you are checking your email, or you are helping your neighbor, or you are working with your code right now, stop whatever it is you're doing and pay attention, because this part is weird and it's important. And it's unfortunate that they made this decision when they were making the language. They have repented since they did this. Here's a very strange thing. Listen, when I have a statement by itself, message box, I'm not trying to print what the message box sends back. I don't care what the message box sends back. I don't want I don't want this for what it returns. I want for its byproduct. This is going to put up a box. That's all I want. I don't care which button they click on. I'm fine this way. But the minute I say I want to do something with the value that comes back, I have to put parentheses around the argument, just like I do for write. Here's write. I'm trying to do things that comes back from write. It's going to bring something back. I got to put parentheses around the argument list. So I've got to wrap this in parentheses. As soon as I put parentheses around that, it can't stand by itself anymore. I'm saying I'm trying to do something with the value that comes back. That means I've got to do something with the value that comes back. In this case, I'm just going to capture it. So let me declare a variable. We'll call it user input as an integer. You'll see why in a minute. Now, so I've declared that variable up here, and now I'm just going to say user input equals. Now I'm doing something with the value that comes back. It's going to display the message box. It's going to put an abort, retry, ignore, a nice little red X. It's going to say server error, all this stuff. Now, depending on which button I press, it's going to have a different value. So now user input is 3. I click on the first button, it returns 3. Let me click on the second button. It returns 4. The third button is going to return 5, I think. So each one of these buttons, regardless of which button set it comes from, abort is always 3. Retry is always 4. Yes, which you haven't seen yet, is always 6. In fact, it is so always 6 that I can say print, there's a variable for it. VB, yes, it's 6. VB abort is 3. So let me change this instead of abort, retry, ignore. Let me put in VB, yes, no. VB, yes, no. And let me actually put a question here. Something went haywire, period, try again. Try again, capital A. Try again, yes, no, that's a good choice. Now, we can decide what to do if they say yes. If user input equals VB yes, right? VB yes is just a 6. I could put 6 right here. Then what do? Actually, we're more interested if they say no. If user input is VB no. What do we do if they say no? Exit sub. We're done. Get me out of here. Want to try again? No. We're done. If they say yes, where do we go? Well, we won't. We'll drop to here. We hit this end if. We hit this exit do. So that exit do is no good. So we got to think about where this exit do belongs. If the right is, let's change this to equals. Let me come up here. We'll make this a little bit more readable. If this is equal to that percent, then it's in the expected form. As expected. And that's when we want to exit the do. I'll bring this exit do from down there, and we'll put it up here. So now, if we made it here, we found, you want to add this to the watch list? Yes, so that's sort of expected. We read into price. We're checking to see if the rightmost 2 characters are the percent. If so, get us out of here. Otherwise, it wasn't the expected format. Something went haywire. You want to try again. If they say no, exit sub. If they say yes, we hit the end if, we hit the loop, we're right back here to the top, and we're trying again. I like it. I know it's kind of tough to follow because I don't have it all showing on the screen. But let me see what I can get. Okay, this is at least that bottom half of the loop. From if we found the cell is nothing. So here, at this point here, we have found, what are we looking for? Add to watch list. We now are taking a look at the price. It's expected. We add a loop. Otherwise, we put the message box. We stay in the loop. So that's message box. Message box allows us to just put a message to the user. If we don't tell it which button to include, it's just going to be an OK button. Otherwise, we can tell it how to look and so forth, and we can pay attention to what the user responded. Questions on message box? Okay, so now if we get here, this is we found a price that looks well formed. Next thing I want to do with price is I need to get, let's see. Let's take a look at price. I got to get the price. I'm after the price. Unfortunately, in this cell, we've got the price, we've got how much it's up or down, and what percentage it's up or down. All I want is the price. How am I going to get it?
Left function, you only use
The leftmost 5 characters?
well, you use the length. But I don't know, it looks like the up and down is variable too, so.
Yeah, so this could be 10% up or down, or it can be $10 up or down. This is kind of tough. How am I going to do it? Tell me, talk to me in English. You don't have to talk to me in VBA. How can I get just the price? Yeah, in the back.
So there will always be 2 digits after the decimal.
Aha!
Do that.
I can look for that decimal, and because I know this is the price, even if it's right on a dollar figure, it's gonna be 56.00. Yeah, the truth is, it's tempting to look for this plus, but what's wrong with the plus? It could be a minus. Well, I could do some trick. I could find all the pluses, change them to minuses, and then I could look for the minus. But let's do your approach. I like your approach. Your approach is, let's look for the period, and then we know we've got to go as far as the period is, plus 2. Okay, so that's what we created that position variable for. So position equals, Here's how I find one string inside of another string. It's called instr, in string, instr. I tell it where to start looking. Start at the first character. Second place, what am I looking in? Price. Third thing, what am I looking for? Looking for a dot. That's it. If I run down to here, now my position is 3. Does that make sense? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, there it is. So that's what inString does. It says, starting at 1, looking at this string, looking for the period, where does it find it? Where does it find the plus? Finds the plus at character number 6. Where does it find a percent? Finds a percent at character number 18. It just says, look in whatever the second argument is, and look for this. I can look for multiple characters. I can look for percent plus, or open parenthesis plus. And I will find that at 12. It doesn't find the first plus, it finds this one. Got it? Yeah.
It always finds the first thing then. But I'll never find the second one.
Oh, the question is, it only finds the first one? There's actually some other arguments here that you can put in. The first one here is, do you want to ignore case or not? So it's case sensitive unless you say VB text compare. And then this will ignore case. Oh yeah, and this one, that's right. It only finds the first one from where you told it to start. So you could build a loop that says find it, and it returns where it found it. So you can say next time I'm looking through it, I'm looking for the first one, but don't look starting at 1, look starting at where it last found it plus 1. Look a little bit past where it last found it, and then move on from there. So you could make a loop that finds them all. But it just finds the first one after the point where you tell it to start looking. Here's the weird one. I'm not sure why this would ever be useful. Well, I can think of some reasons. But if you tell it to look for a zero-length string, what's it going to find? Well, let's do one more thing. Let's look for a z. Where's it going to find z? How does it tell me I can't find it? It returns 0. So if you get a 0 back from this, that's the function's way of saying, yeah, I looked through the whole thing, I couldn't find it. 0. How about a zero-length string? Where does it find it? What do you think? The zero-length string is either not in here or it's everywhere. Which one do you think it is?
Nothing.
Tell me, is there a zero-length string between the 5 and the 6?
Yeah.
There totally is. It will find a zero-length string everywhere. It doesn't have to tell you where you tell it to look. If I look at the third character for a zero-length string, found it. Because it's everywhere. Oh yeah, it's at the 6th character too. So that's just kind of a little quirk of this. It's not how you might expect it. How you expect it to be. I don't think it matters what we're doing here. Okay, so now we have found our position. It's the position of that period. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to modify price. I'd like to say price now is equal to, I don't want it to be the whole thing. What do I want? I want the left of price starting, oh no, sorry. It's starting at the left. What the left mean? You take the leftmost certain number of characters. So what do I want? Position plus 2. And so now that should actually get me to the price. There it is, just the price. Wonderful. Questions? Okay. Here's what I'd like to do. I would like to get, I'm going to find it. I don't want to get something from the left or the rightmost characters. Let's say I want to start from right here and get everything else. This is not especially intuitive, the way that it works here in VBA. It's not too bad once you've seen it. So let's take a look. I'm going to call that increase. That's like my increase data. So we'll declare another variable for this. Dim increase as a string. So I've got a string variable for this now. And I better do this before I change what the price is, because I'm kind of counting on price being here. So after I get the position, increase equals, now I'm going to do this with mid. Starting at somewhere in the middle of a string, the string I want to start in is price. Where do I want to start? Position plus 3, right? Because position here plus 2, see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's plus 2. Is that character there? I don't want to start there. I want to start with this character. So that's position plus 3. And now I've got to tell it how many characters I want to take. Let me just take 5 characters for now. We'll adjust it. I'm going to put a stop after this one. Oh, you know what? I've already blown price away. So I'm going to stop this whole thing right now. Well, I'll stop right after I've got increase. So now my increase is just what I'm after. But what's the problem with what I've done? The problem is where? Am I starting at the right place regardless of the data changing?
And what if it goes to $10?
Yeah, I think I'm okay starting here because I'm finding where to start based on where the period is. So I think I'm always going to have 2 after the period, and then I'm going to start here. But yeah. What if I got 4 digits to work with in my number instead of 3? The 5's not going to do the trick. Whew. So let's do this. Instead, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off that last argument. When I use the mid function, if I don't supply a 3rd argument, it goes, oh, you must mean the rest of the string. So now I'll run this. Now increase should start in the right place, and it should take the rest. So that looks pretty good. And now I can just do the same thing I did before to find that space and use that to figure out how to pull off that first part. But I'm going to do something a little bit fancier. Introduce a couple of more string functions. And so to do this next part, I'm going to need a variant type variable. Oh. Let me dim data as variant. Dim data as... All right. So I'm going to say increase equals that. Now data equals, let's do this. Before we do that, I'm going to do one more thing here to increase. Before we do data. Increase equals, let's look at the replace function. The replace function allows me to say, look at a string, look for every occurrence of some substring, and replace that with something else. So in this case, I would like to get this down to where I've just got kind of a delimiter between these two. So let me go ahead and, actually, what I want to do is I want to get rid of the parentheses. So I'm going to say replace. Let's look at increase. Let's look for an opening parenthesis. And let me replace it with, at this point, let's seem a little bit weird, but let me replace it at first with a closing parenthesis. I probably would want to do this with replacing it with a zero-length string, but we'll do that in a minute. This will just let you see what's happening to increase. So if I look at increase right now, it's got an opening and a closing. I'm going to look for every opening parenthesis, and I'm going to replace it with a closing parenthesis. Yeah? So I'll run that. And I'll look at my increase now. Now I've got 2 closing parentheses. Let me do one more thing with replace here. I'm going to look at increase. This time I'm going to look for a closing parenthesis, and I'm going to replace it with a zero-length string. And so now that should find every occurrence of a closing parenthesis, and it should delete it. So I'll run that. I'll look at increase again. Now I've just got increase, space, and then I've got my percent increase. So replace is really handy. And by the way, replace, I can make it case insensitive as well. So I can tell it where to start. I want to start from the whole thing. The default's 1. I can tell it how many I want to replace. So similar to what you were asking about InString, with replace, I can tell it how many you want to replace. Replace the first 3. And then I can make the compare method to tell me if it's case insensitive. I'll leave that though just with the default 3 parameters. Okay, so now let's look at data. I'm going to set data is my variant variable. I'm going to set it equal to the split function. Split is wonderful. Split allows me to take some string, in this case I've got increase, and I can cut it up into a bunch of small strings. I can make a whole bunch of strings in one fell swoop. I'm going to say look at increase, and I'm going to split it based on this delimiter, a space. It's going to find every space, and it's going to use that as a delimiter. It's going to chop this up into as many strings as it can make based on where the spaces are. How many strings is it going to make? Just 2. Put 1 space in the string. But that's going to now bind that set of strings into this variant variable called data. We run that. And now let me look at data. I can't look at data by itself. There's a bunch of them there. I got to tell which one I'm interested in. Let's look at data number 1. It's plus 2.36%. Wait, that's number 1? What's the other one then? The other one's number 0. This collection of string variables is a particular kind of collection called an array. We will spend 2 days talking about arrays. But this is just kind of a little introduction to it at this point. It's a really handy thing, and we really can refer to these just as data 0 and data 1. That's how we get to those values. We'll get more comfortable working with arrays when we get to that portion of the class. When we're talking about string functions, I want to introduce this. Questions? Okay, those are the main string functions that I wanted to cover. That's chapter 8. That's chapter 9. Now we got to do chapter 8. We've got 4 minutes, 3 minutes. That should be okay. Chapter 8 is other functions. It's just like mathematical functions. So, folks, if you've got the point is, you can do math. Let's say this was negative instead of positive. Well, I could print that. It's kind of boring, but I could print that. But I could print the absolute value, ABS, of that. That's a function. We'll take some argument, return the absolute value of it. The square root. SQR, I can't remember square root. 622,521. Oops. 622,521. Yeah, the square root of 622,521 is 789. I learned that in like 7th grade. Some kind of test we had to do. And it was a multiplication test. That was the test. 789 times 789. I had to come and do it in the presence of the instructor. I memorized the answer. I remember that ever since. Okay. One more to look at in this math. And it's not a function per se. This is a different kind of operator, but it'll be interesting to us probably the next time we get together. I can take 10, and I can divide that by 3. And that's going to give me some decimal number. But I can do this. Instead of divide, I can do integer division. That's the backward slash. And that's just 3. Just give me the integer portion of that division. Do you remember 4th grade long division? It was a long time ago. It was longer for me. I can take 10 mod 3, and it gives me the remainder. So mod is modulus. That's the mathematical term for take a number, divide it by some other number, and tell us the remainder. And so using integer division and modulus, I can split that division problem and look at both halves of it. Mod is a surprisingly useful function. It'll be powerful for us the next time we get together. Because mod lets us know if a number is odd or even. Kind of a hard question to ask. How would you look at a number and know if it's odd or even? And the answer is mod could help you with that. And that's just something to think about. How could mod help you tell if a number was odd or even? Thanks for coming. Class dismissed.